Hello everyone and welcome back to Anether. As you can see over here, we've upgraded and a bit reorganized our collectors here, so this is getting quite a few diamonds at this point. I might just take this one out. Over here, you can see I've done some work with the door. I'm not particularly happy with this. It kind of gets the main idea of what I'm going to be doing with them across, but a little bit of a pain. Also kind of lag intensive more than anything else. Yep, got this in place. As it turns out, there is a time in hell. I wasn't aware of this, as you can imagine, but apparently there is actually world time instead of hell, so that's just a quick program that's doing that with the martyrs. All the machines have been shifted over, and all the storage has been done. So that's all nice and tidy. Over here, we have our new Arboreum. I think that's the name for it. Disk drive, bit useless right now. Computer. And we've got all of these guys. Most of them don't have any code, except for this little guy, who's currently waiting for a tree to pop up. This is a slight problem. This texture issue, which I'll be aiming at least to, well, I can't really fix it myself, but I can switch over to the default texture pack. It makes things a lot easier to understand. Meanwhile, machines are all running nicely. You can see all these pipes and pumps back at the back here. That is to take anything that is finished processing out of these machines and puts them over here. There's our usual little transposer trick over there is putting things into the macerator for us. We have a fair bit. A lot of this, guys. It took a long time to get through all this copper, so we may be upgrading at some point soon. Over here, we have a somewhat revised setup for the mass fabricator, where things just being pulled in from this junk chest, which is now empty. That's unusual. Ooh, that's a lot of scrap. That is a lot of scrap. Okay, it's not doing anything at the moment because the mass fabricator eats a lot of power. So I've got this lever here, which kind of turns it on and off. So there it goes, busying away, and we already have 10. I'm just going to turn that off because that should be all we need for the moment. Now, what we're going to be looking at today is getting a new power source, because we've got the one back here in our little power plant room. I've already done a bit of work clearing space out. But we've still got our MFE hooked up to a standard generator. Just the one for the time being. Which is good, it gives us power, but the generator gets taken up. The generator does not really have a constant output, and that's really what we need down here. We need something that's a lot more reliable and does not require our input. So I've got some glass, some refined iron, and a generator, along with some empty cells. And if you know what I'm going to make by now, then do keep it to yourself, because everyone else wants to find out. So let's put this together, shall we? Generator down here. Glass up here, makes a very strange mug. Refined iron. Empty cells. Geothermal. Now, this is a setup I've been teaching to Dave Chaos and the other guys on the Suicide Gamers server, which had a bit of a rough day today. I'll talk about that in a bit. Which is basically, we're going to be using this collector with this condenser and this transposer going into this generator to give us endless amounts of lava power. So let's just hop down here. We'll set this up. Yeah, it's not a perfect little room, but it's nice. I kind of wish that we weren't dead on top of bedrock here. I wish that I could go a block lower, but not a big problem really. Okay, so we want to be here. So put our collector there. Our condenser there, and the reason I'd like this to be a block lower is so that I can have the wires on top, and that'll give us a lot more space, but again, not a huge problem. Okay, and this wants to be going there, next to the wires, and our transposer here, so we connect it to that. And what we want to put in here is a lava cell, so we'll just pop on over, and then pop on up. Oop, where am I? Oh, one too far over. And there's room in here for about, I think it's like 27 or so of those, so we should be able to get some decent power out of them. There isn't really that much power you can get from a single geothermal, but if you have a whole ton of them, then it becomes rather easy. Do get quite a lot of power, and that's fine. In theory, you can do the same kind of trick using charcoal and a regular old generator, but I kind of prefer the geothermals on this notion because the geothermals make a lot less noise, and they have their own internal storage. They don't waste anything. It's kind of a moot point if you have infinite of something, but I prefer to be a bit more efficient on that notion. But yeah, meanwhile, on the server, which I've been fielding like panicked questions from subscribers all day for. There we go, one lava cell. There was a bit of a hiccup last night. If you're seeing this Friday, then it happened over the course of Wednesday night. Not long after the Remember page update, I believe. I was messing around with some code in computer craft, which it turns out is full of bugs, because the server crashed, which wasn't in and of itself any big issue. Except, well, actually that in and of itself was no problem whatsoever, but had me worried for a little bit. Because what happened next was that Windows updates hit the computer that runs the server. And Windows updates, if you're not careful and watching it, resets the computer. Which meant the server got rebooted. But that wouldn't have been a problem if we hadn't also had the slight issue that the server was on a RAM disk, which is why it got rebooted completely and wiped. But it wouldn't have been much of an issue if the backup system was working properly. And as it turns out, the backups, which are supposed to be nightly, haven't been running basically at all for about a month. We don't know why this is. We're looking into it. Hopefully it has been fixed at this point. We are not entirely certain. We're going to be keeping an eye on it, I should imagine. But that's basically what happened. And because there's not been a backup for a month, we only have a month-old backup, which is basically day one for everyone on the server. And in fact, behind day one for me. A bunch of misadventures trying to get that door to work. But not that big a problem. So yeah, that happened. And that's annoying. But suffice it to say, we have installed... We've got World Edit running. Which is basically like a big... It's a fairly popular program for getting big changes to worlds sorted and stuff. Which is handy for Go. Do I need this over here? Yes, I do. I basically want it to be mirroring underneath these. But it's a nice little trident design that I'm liking. But, where was I? Yeah. World Edit is running, and everyone's been temporarily opt. So not just me. And the aim is that everyone's going to be using basically creative mode to fix all of the stuff that's gotten destroyed by that. And it shouldn't be a problem. So normal service should resume shortly. Don't panic, keep calm and carry on, all that. Okay, and this lets us use a single timer for all of these. And I need to be over there, so I can get out of here, for one thing. Bit of a problem for me, because when I accidentally crashed the server, which I am afraid to say is not a particularly uncommon occurrence, because again, computer craft, it turns out, is lots of buggy. But when I was doing that, I was messing with a mining turtle pathfinding program. Which I was reasonably certain I'd fixed, but apparently not. Spent half the night trying to make it rotate vectors, probably. But I'm sure I would all kinds of bore everyone if I described that in substantial detail. Well, I will be doing a little bit of programming today. And that's the sound of the mass fabricator running, that's strange. There's no power going to it at the moment. Strange. Okay, so there should be, I believe, power going into this, yep. Which means power should be rising. There's nothing in there. And yep, it's going up quite nicely, actually. That's interesting. It's going up a lot faster than I would generally give it credit for. Oh yeah, fun thing about these glass slabs. You can break them and you'll get them back. Which is something nice I found out. Not quite as clean a look as the glass on the doorway, which you've just seen. I've opened up a little bit. But it's nice nonetheless. Okay, so that's what an active geothermal generator looks like from the top, and I like the look of it. I was hoping to have it a block lower so that I could have all of these wires on top of it, but c'est la vie. But yeah, we can have a lot of these, so the power will be rather substantial. I'm going to work on getting that expanded as we go. And that will be our permanent power supply, which will mean I will not have to be running back making charcoal and whatnot. But the other thing that we need to do today is, well, we've got all this UU matter. And there's a lot of things we can do with this UU matter. We can make water, for example. Just see if I can... No, you might be able to only do that in this. I'm not particularly used to using this stuff. There's bones. There's all sorts of different combinations you can use. But I will just bring up the page. I have it kind of bookmarked on the wiki for this. But the thing that we're going to be making today are reeds. And we're going to be starting a little reed farm around here somewhere, I think. Reeds aren't that big of an issue, but worth looking into. I would be looking up reeds, at least, if my internet wasn't being so buggy. It's been a constant pain of a problem, really. Virgin Media appears to be going kind of nuts. That's been affecting Dragon as well, actually. Dragon has been feeling a lot of bad for it. Oop. Now I've upgraded from our old iron sword to my personal favourite, the diamond battle axe, which looks quite a lot less awesome in this particular texture pack. But oh well. Still gotta see this guy. There we go. Okay, so this is what's underneath our arboreum. I'm going to have to get used to saying that word. And what happens here is the bots, the turtles, are programmed to just harvest a tree whenever it pops up, and then they go right back down, plant another sapling, and underneath them is a alchemical chest, which they pump all of their gubbins that they don't need into the chest, and then that gets pumped out of here along these lines. These are iron pipes, so they can only go out one way, and these are gold pipes, so they get accelerated. They get shot along into this chest, where we've got a few things already. We've only got the one robot running with the one sapling, so kind of running a bit slowly, which is why I wanted to get reeds, because reeds are an important element of making floppy disks, and floppy disks allow you to store code on them, and then you can just plonk a robot next to it, and it will immediately install the code that you want. So it's very handy if you've got, like, a robot here who's doing just the one thing for the rest of his life. And I'm sure he has career prospects elsewhere, but oh well. We're getting a little low on health. Oh, a little low on food. Yep. I'm gonna keep an eye on my little, network connection there, see if the UU matter thing pops up. But things that we're going to be doing around here, I think. I want to do something with that. What I want to have eventually is a sensor system. There's sensors from CC Sensors, which are an add-on. There we are, for the computer craft, and you can combine them with the sensor controller on the computers and whatnot to detect certain things. Just find it. Yeah, proximity. That will tell you the proximity of entities like those rats, and most notably me. So I'd like to have it so that I don't really need these pressure plates. I can just walk towards a door, it'll detect I'm there and open it. And something else I want to get is, for that we're going to need an electrolyzer down there, but I want to use, instead of these pistons, I want to have the same kind of iris sort of effect, but using force fields. So it'll have like a donut shape of transparent, wiggly line, blue force field, and in the middle here you'll have a zapper. And I do believe that is actually included, just before I get ahead of myself. Whoop. There we go. Yep, it's included. There we are. Everything's there, that's good. And those are very handy. I've been rebuilding. Whoa, there goes the frames. I've been rebuilding the QLab on the server because that got completely wiped. But yeah, I've been rebuilding that, and the first thing I've been working on actually is a bridge, because the QLab was previously deep underground, and that wasn't so bad. I had a bunch of different contraptions. The QLab is basically a place where I A, show off, and B, demonstrate. Mostly the show off, because people don't visit that often. But yeah, it was underground, and it had a bunch of cool stuff. But that was limiting in a lot of ways. I had a lot of stuff that was running around on the surface as well, just because I didn't really have all that much space to devote to various things. So that was nice, but a bit restrictive. So I'm building it up on the surface this time, above where it originally was, since my waypoints are still around. And the first thing I've been building is a bridge. So it was from one small mountain by the coast. I suppose it's more of a hill than anything else, to the original mountain that was actually on top of. And that bridge is made of force field. That force field is about 64 blocks long. And that meant that I have to have a gatehouse at one end, which can project one half of the bridge, and another projector on the other, at the home side, that projects another 32 blocks of bridge. Which means I have to have something in the middle, and some way of getting a signal to the actual gatehouse. So there's like a halfway point between the actual like gatehouse and the halfway the building. My tongue is getting all kinds of tied. But let's see. Just get an example up here. There we go. So that's home. That's the gatehouse, that's the halfway point between the two, and in between is our force fields bridge. Now, the way that the gatehouse works is that there is a computer that is waiting for a signal over the wireless, effectively, to tell it to raise the bridge. It's also waiting on a signal to say, shut down your local shielding, because to ensure that the safety of that particular system, I've entombed it in its own little cubic force field. The consequence of that further being that I can't run any wires to it. But, so then it waits on a wireless signal. The problem being that the distance from here to there is so large that even in good conditions it can't actually reach. So on this little halfway point, this halfway point was basically made a necessity by virtue of the fact that I have to have a wireless turtle there to work as a relay for the messages. So if you break the turtle, then the bridge can't move. Which is not so big a problem, considering that everyone can fly on the server now. Everyone's kind of reached that point. It was a big point in our last group Teggit. But it is a bit of a problem when you realise that because it's above ground, I have entirely surrounded the new QLab Reborn, in a spherical zapper force field. And a zapper force field is what I want in the middle of these irises. And it basically combines a force field with a Tesla coil. It's sort of like projected cactus. In fact, it's exactly like projected cactus now I think about it. You walk into it, you take damage, otherwise you're fine. So there's this big, glowing, red, deadly force field around the entire structure of QLab Reborn. And the bridge the bridge passes through it. In fact, rather fortuitously, the halfway point is right on the edge of it. Should I try and reboot this? Yeah, the internet's being very slow today. And the UUuuuuuu recipes are not inside of here. They're not anywhere, you can't find them, so you just have to look at the wiki, otherwise you have to spend like 5 hours trial and erroring. But not that huge a problem, it's loaded up now. I'm just going gonna shoot this up because we're getting more of this stuff. So, what we are looking for... Let's see, there's iron, sticky resin, gold ore, coal, copper, tin, glass, water. Water we're going to need. And I was halfway right, it's more or less this. There we go, that's still water. We're going to need 2 of those. And these are the water tiles, so we can't actually place these down. The next question is, where are we going to put them? They're not in any way a kind of vital resource in the fact that we can actually just recreate them now. We can't EMC them, I don't think. Nope, we can't. I'm just going to put it over here. But these are going to be very handy later on. Okay, and... Yep. Can now make water cells, which means we can make a whole ton of stuff. But the thing I'm most interested in getting today... Oh, there's clay. I've already used some of this to actually make clay to get the alloy furnace over there that I was originally going to be using to make a bunch of stuff. I needed it to make the red alloy wires that we had over there, which are very handy when you're wiring stuff. Let's see, obsidian, some kinds of wood. I might actually want to do that, actually. That's a point. How much do I have? 6. Right, well, let's just see how much we need. 4. Let's see, there's feathers. Those are going to be handy later. Sugarcane. We need 6 balls. Well, good thing we've got that running. Okay, so... sugarcane. Okay, there we go. Let's stick one of these in our alchemy chest. Does that look different? That's interesting. I've been fiddling with the texture pack a little bit. It hasn't resolved the whole everything is a flat shape kind of thing, but still useful. So if I remember correctly, yep, there's paper, and there's sugar. We're definitely going to be interested in keeping that around, but we'll find out why later. Okay, now recipe for a floppy disk. There's 2 kinds, because Red Power has its own, and then there's Computer Crafts. Computer Crafts is the one that we're interested in for the time being. We need a little bit of redstone. Yeah, there's also vines, wool, there's all sorts we can get from this. Yep, just take that back. And we only need the 1 disk. There we go. And we're going to need this floppy drive. That's an interesting one. Okay, so we put our disk in the drive. It's been a long time since I've used a floppy disk, it has to be said. And just so we can see this better, I'm going to switch over to the regular texture pack, which makes this place look quite a lot uglier, but I suppose we'll have to deal with it, because changing texture packs always takes such a long time. Unless, of course, you jinx it by saying it takes a lot of time. But, one thing's interesting is that the axe looks a lot more smooth on these guys now. But, yeah, everything else looks kind of ugly. Okay, so, if we list the stuff we've got here, we've got his startup, his nav, which was just moving him around when I was testing this program. Lumberjack is what he runs to actually get things running. And what we want to be doing is writing a little quick program to copy those startup and lumberjack programs to the disk. So let's just use nav, it's kind of my throwaway. One thing I love about this, as opposed to the Tekkit server, is that there's that little line counter in the bottom right. Very handy. Okay, so, file system, copy, and what we are copying is startup. We are taking it to /disk. We're calling it startup F. And same with our lumberjack. Copy that to the same place as lumber. Startup. Just call that startup file, shall we? Okay. And we run nav. And we change directory to the disk. What we have on the disk? Lumber and startup file. Perfect. And now we need to give the disk its own little startup. And what startup is any file that's named startup is run when a computer or turtle or whatever first boots up. And the fun thing is, if there is a startup file like this inside of a disk that is right next to a computer or a turtle, the turtle will run that startup file. So we're just going to have fs.copy, take it from the disk, we want startup file, and we're copying that as startup to the main directory of the turtle. And then we're also copying the lumberjack. There we go, and we're keeping the original names because the startup file references them. Okay, so we can now happily break this young gentleman. Whoop, he's counting some fun stuff. And we want to drop him back down. Give him some stuff. List is in... Yep, there we go, lumberjack and startup. So he's all ready to go now. Now the way I've got these guys is... whenever they detect that the block in front of them is not their rubber tree sapling, they'll dig it up and start climbing up until they hit either that glass, which they can discern from this piece of glass there, or they run out of tree in front of them. So that means all of these guys need to have a piece of glass in their inventory. But we have a bit of a surplus of that anyway, so not a problem. Okay, second slot, because that's what they're programmed for. I've used felling turtles, you can use mining turtles, there isn't much difference in this particular capacity. I do enjoy the turtles. If you haven't seen it, there was another video earlier this week, which was, see if I can remember... It was called Technic Reactor Safety 2, and it's the second in the series, the first being Technic Reactor Safety. This particular one involved, there's a tiny little cut on the inside of my left ear that's really bugging me with these earphones. But, yeah, the first one involved mainly how to build a nuclear reactor and the easiest way of ensuring that it didn't explode. Let me just take one of those. You're not running anything at the moment, so that's fine. Yep. It's always a slight problem to exit a turtle, but oh well. But yeah, this most recent one involves using your, well, first, finding the temperature limits. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Finding the particular temperature limits of your specific reactor. Because it does vary, based on how many chambers you've got, and the cooling and all sorts. You can back in there. And also some of the things you can do with them, one of which was alert some helpful turtles. They were a little bit of a pain to set up for that scene, but fun nonetheless. Okay. Now before, when I had this place full of saplings, these were going off very often. Okay, so now that we've got that, I'm just going to stick some power back in our rather ugly-looking mining drill. But we don't have to worry too much about having a lack of power. Whoa, or maybe we do. Oh, that'll be the, yeah, that'll be this eating it up. Yep. It's eaten all the way through it all. But it's happily building now. Yeah, that's why we need to have multiples of those. One by itself will do a fair job for most purposes, but you really need quite a few of them. Okay, and there we go, fully charged diamond drill. I always like the way that these, these alloy furnaces look in the defaults. Just look at that, it looks like he's like got a weird smiley emoticon face on him. But, what time is it? Oh well, it's gone past midnight. Oop. And we have a tree. Huzzah for us. Okay, so we need this disk, and we need this disk drive. And if we boot him up, just hold Control R, he'll run his startup program. Yep. Yep, down he comes. Zero's in, and they're being sucked out again to arrive over here in short order. Okay, and that's what all of these guys are going to be doing. It's good to see that that worked, because if it hadn't, he would have burrowed through the glass up there. And that glass is actually the lava lake above us. So it would have been a bit of a problem. Okay, reboot you. Good. Just go along and do this with all of them. Ideally, you'd have a spot where you could just plonk a turtle and it'll head off. But, which would make this a lot faster. But we want these guys in specific locations, and they're only doing one thing for the entirety of their lives. So it's not that big of a problem. Fortunately, you can shift-click into disk drives. Okay, reboot. Yep, that's fine. Usually if I'm updating usually when I'm writing an installation file like the one on our disk here, it'll include a little piece that says to delete any file that has the same name as what I'm installing, which makes it very useful when you're trying to update things. But that's not a problem because we haven't installed anything here today. Okay, let's actually just have a quick look at what this guy's doing when he's rebooting, shall we? Yep, just install. Okay, so yeah, you can see he briefly switches to the glass to detect if it's what's above him, and then he zooms through all of his inventory to dump all of his cargo. And what he's doing there is he's just dumping it into the inventory that's directly beneath him, which is this chest. And we are losing a sapling here, but that's not a big issue at all. They're probably just ending up over at that chest again. That main collection chest. Speaking of, I should really empty the one in the machine shop, because that's really full. Okay, and almost everyone has a sapling in front of them now. Does that reset? Yes, it has. Okay, so that's everyone with a tree. We can go back to our regular texture pack. This is probably going to take a little bit more time. If anyone happens to know where the 64 scale Technic pack for from Sfax Pure BD Craft happens to be for this most recent version of Technic, by all means let me know, because it's not a huge issue, but I really wouldn't mind having things sorted. Just have a sip of my tea while this keeps going. This will be the point where it decides to change, I'm sure. Bum-bum-be-dum-bum-be-dum. And once this finishes, eventually, I believe we'll use a bit more of our UUuuuuuu matter to make some feathers. And you'll see why when it finally gets design quarters going. Yep, is it not? Interesting. Oh well, nothing to worry about, I'm sure. I would just use the Sphax Pure B Decker. Yeah, there we go. I would just use this Sphax, but it doesn't include a lot of the items that we're using. Well, which isn't actually all that many, but suffice to say, it's a significant portion. I've got a bunch of them just from trying to find the right one, but not a problem. Right, there we go. Okay, and now everything looks pretty again. Including our little turtle army. So, those are all now programmed to wait for a tree to grow up, and it'll cut them down and plant another one. And they shall continue doing that until such a time as they actually completely run out of saplings. But, no. Oh. Just point out floppy disk there, in case we ever need to change it. So yes, we now need 4 UU matter, but we don't have any on us at the moment, so how many is sitting in our mass fabricator? 6. Perfect. So, what we need are feathers. And this will serve to make us... Oop, that's a lot of feathers. This next little thing will serve to make us pretty much invulnerable around here. We're already fairly resilient due to our Vulcanite amulet. But what we're going to be making now is Swiftwolf's Rending Gale. Let me just see if I remember specifically. There it is. Okay, so we need some 4 dark matter, which I believe is, yep, more or less the equivalent of 17 diamonds. But 17 times 4 is 38... 76, I believe, so we can quite happily grab some from over in there. But the more expensive thing is that band, which requires our amulet and some iron. It's a lot more expensive if you don't have the Vulcanite amulet, but hang on, actually, we can use as an excuse to get some stuff out of our chest over here. Let's take the 44. Whoop. Threw it on the ground! I have no idea what that's a reference to, it's something the Shaft guys keep saying. Okay, so, 1 band. With this band, I thee wed. To hell and eternity. Okay, I also made some red matter, which took me forever, but it's a lot faster now that we've got this full thing working. And I will be happy when we're using a sensor, because there'll be that much less sound. And if there's force fields, there'll be 0 sound. It'll just be there and it won't be there. It'll be perfect. But that's something for later. Okay, dark matter. Oh, nearly got them all. 5. And soak up the rest. Okay, so dark matter in the corners. Feathers filling the ring. And ring in the middle, and that makes us a Swiftwolf's Rending Gale. And the easiest and most obvious results, is that we can now fly. With pretty much the same amount of speed as we could when we were sat on the top of lava with our amulet. But if I find a reasonably good place for this, I can show off what the Rending Gale is going to do to make us basically impervious to harm completely around here. Well, unless we're stupid and attack a whole bunch of pigmen or something, because we don't have much in the way of ranged weaponry. Yet. Let's see. My render distance is on tiny, just to make sure that we get some decent frame rates. So I'm afraid we'll have to deal with that. Let's see, we are now 53 meters from that waypoint on Cobble Mountain. Perfectly fine. So, now lava, nor the incredible drops of the nether, have any bearing on whether we live or die. And we can travel around pretty much using lava as a highway more than anything else. If I just dive down here, there's the hole above our home base, and over here is the Arboreum. Which is an interesting job to dig out, I have to say, because I accidentally hit the lava lake at first, so there was lava streaming down through this corner. And I believe... Ooh, looks like one of the trees has grown. Recently. Yeah, but that was fun, because I then set the tree farms, well, the trees that were growing at the time, on fire. And there was a couple more leaks while I was in the process of everything. Let's see, it should be right down here. Yep, there's the home base. I'm thinking of putting a hole, which is like a lava stream coming down, in the middle of home base here. Just so I have an easy and obvious place to jump up and out of. And that got turned to cobble while I was doing the wiring for that. Yep, but our home base is becoming quite an interesting place to be. And out we go. Now we can combine this with like a zero ring, and a harvest goddess band, which is what Nippy's running around with, and a zero ring, which is like the ice ring basically, and make that into a ring of arcana. But there isn't much reason to, although I believe a zero ring would actually cause damage to things. And we can't make ice with UUuuuuuu matter, but we can make snowballs, to my knowledge. Yes, we can. We need 3 of that to make a... We need that to make a zero ring, and we can... If I just check the zero ring, actually. The zero ring's most obvious ability is that you can use it to fire snowballs at people. Snowball... we could probably make that. But we're not going to make that today, because it's running a bit late. So, that's all for the time being. I'm probably going to spend the rest of the in-between time here just making more geothermal generators for along here, so that we don't have as much of a problem with the mass generators sucking up all the power. But that's all for today, and I shall catch you next time. Live from the Thunderdome.